times like these.
Welcome back to Solution Garden. We're your hosts, Laser Tiger
and Tyrone. Thanks for joining us. Today we're looking at letters from the viewers, you. And we're actually going to be looking at solution-focused family therapy.
Following the letters, we'll be talking to families as they engage in solution-focused family therapy. We encourage you to participate at home. You got your first letter there? Tyrone?
I do. This is from Roy, St. John's, Newfoundland. Never been there, but looks like a nice place.
Yeah,
definitely.
They have nice wheat
That's right.
on the commercials.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Roy asks, Tyrone and Laser Tiger, I'm really curious about the assumptions behind solution-focused family therapy, and I'm wondering if you can expand on them a bit more. I think we can do that, Roy.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Roy. We can do that. One of the key assumptions for solution-focused family therapy is that clients possess the abilities to change.
Exactly, yeah. And there's a real focus on the strengths and resources and pulling that out of the clients too.
Certainly, certainly. Also, there's the fundamental assumption in solution-focused family therapy that the client is the expert in their own lives. And congruent with this assumption, therapists take a not knowing stance.
That's right. And they try to stay away from pathologizing clients as well. They really want to focus on solutions as opposed to problems. They try to make it so we're oriented in the present and the future, looking at what's to come as opposed to looking at the past and the problem.
And also, consistent with that, the theory behind solution-focused therapy suggests that really getting a thorough understanding of the problem is not necessary for the commencement of therapy.
That's right.
Now, solution-focused therapy is a very collaborative endeavor.
Yeah, it is. Particularly when developing goals with clients.
Certainly, yes. The therapist attempts to work from the client's worldview, and this allows solution-focused family therapy to be appropriate for multicultural families and clients.
Exactly.
Can you eat that plant?
I don't know. Let's find out.
What happens if you put it in your mouth?
Should we find out?
Yeah. Maybe we just go and look at it.
Okay.
So our next letter, Tyrone, is from Manny. He's writing from the People's Republic of China.
Long-time writer to the show. So
Yeah.
he always
Thanks
says
again,
something
Manny.
good.
That's excellent. Manny writes, how does change occur in solution-focused therapy?
It's a good question, Laser Tiger, because solution-focused therapy is a little bit different when it comes to change and how that works with clients, isn't it?
Yeah, in comparison to some of the other therapeutic modalities. But as we already mentioned, Manny, in solution-focused therapy, change is always viewed as possible. Clients are seen as having the capacity to change. Clients will change under empowering therapeutic conditions.
That's right, yeah. And in solution-focused family therapy, behavior change is seen as one of the most effective ways in order to instill the possibility to grow and change for clients.
Absolutely. And through empowering clients and helping them make behavioral changes, we attempt to help the client create a self-identity that is grounded on competence and resourcefulness, so the clients can move out beyond therapy and address their other problems and future problems?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent question, Manny.
Thanks, Manny. Whoa. New conditioner?
Yeah, Pantene Pro V.
Oh. Good call.
Thanks, yeah.
Oh.
Hey there.
Still there. Okay.
Yeah.
On to the next letter there, Laser Tiger.
Right on.
Okay. This is a letter from Jim. It's from Nanaimo. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Right on Vancouver Island.
Oh,
Nice
sorry,
place.
Jim.
Yeah. So, Jim wants to know, there's a lot of solution talk and solution-focused family therapy as opposed to problem talk. And so he's just wondering what that might look like and what that's all about in therapeutic setting.
Oh, okay. Well, Jim, one way that solution-focused family therapists focus on solution talk as opposed to problem talk is by using presuppositional language.
Presuppositional language, yeah. I wonder, do you mind explaining a bit more about what that is for the folks at home?
Nope. Presuppositional language is language that makes an assumption or it supposes something in advance. In the context of solution-focused family therapy, presuppositional language makes the assumption that change will occur, or it makes the assumption that there are exceptions to problems.
Right. So I wonder, what would that look like? Well, I can think of something in a solution-focused family therapy setting that might work.
Oh, please do. Sure.
So one example that I was thinking of would be, instead of saying, has there been a time when this problem hasn't been an issue, you would more likely say presuppositional language such as, when has there been a time that this hasn't been an issue? So that focuses on the idea that there has been a moment in time when there hasn't been an issue like this.
Yes, and so it encourages clients to actively look for exceptions to the problem.
Exactly.
Yeah, because I'm sure some clients get into problem-saturated stories where they minimize the number of exceptions to the problem.
Yeah, so with solution talk such as this, they can focus more on when they have the capability to actually get through the problem in the past. So LT, we've got another letter here. This one's from Mike from Ontario. And Mike says, first time writer, love your show, but I see some issues with solution-focused family therapy. For one thing, how much empirical validation is there behind it, especially compared to, say, CBT? So, what do you think about that, LT? What do you have to say?
Well, first of all, Mike, if you're going to write into the show, I would appreciate a little less hostile language in your letters.
Agreed.
Bring it on down.
A notch.
Down. That's right. Now, well, that is a common complaint about solution-focused family therapy, that there is not as much empirical support as some of the other family therapies. The few studies that have measured the outcomes have been very promising. Alright? Studies comparing short-term and long-term therapies show differences are very negligible, Mike. Also, two of the most prominent published studies conducted at the Brief Family Therapy Center in Milwaukee demonstrated a success rate of 72%, and the second study demonstrated a success rate of over 80% based on clients' self-reports. Yeah, these studies asked participants whether or not their goals had been met by solution-focused family therapy, and most of them said yes, Mike. Alright?
There you go, Mike. So solution-focused family therapy is based on a postmodern approach. It relies on social constructivism and systems theory. And because problems and solutions are not objective realities, but are subject to a person's construction and interpretation, there is no single solution to any problem. So basically, solutions need not be directly related to problems.
Yeah, and consequently, therapy becomes a process in which both the therapist and client co-construct new beneficial systems or frames that are conducive to problem resolution. And as a systems theory, solution-focused family therapy is based on the assumption that if we change one aspect of the system, all other aspects of the system will change as well. And so, oftentimes, helping one member of the family meet their goals will help bring about change to the entire family.
Yeah. One affects the other. It's sort of a ripple effect in some ways.
Yes. Ripple. Like chips.
And the water.
And the water. Is that chair comfortable?
Not too bad.
Can I try that one later?
Yeah. It's been refabricated, actually.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, it's nice. Yeah. Now, many of you at home probably believe that solution-focused family therapy is a brief therapy. And a lot of the time you would be right. However, solution-focused family therapy is not always brief, nor does it have to be. Solution-focused family therapy attempts to identify a single, attainable, realistic goal right from sort of the start. And then, once that goal is met, therapist and client evaluate whether or not further therapy is needed. In the situation that another goal is co-created between client and therapist, therapy will continue. In this way, the focus is on meeting one goal at a time. However, this doesn't necessarily have to be brief. It can be many sessions, it may take many sessions to attain a number of goals.
And one of the founders, even, Insoo Kim Berg, even said that it just takes as many sessions that is necessary. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a brief model, but just whatever is deemed necessary. And when you finally meet that goal that the clients have constructed, then that would be an appropriate time to terminate.
Absolutely. Oftentimes, this assumption that solution-focused family therapy is brief is phrased almost as a critique. Like, that's a short-term therapy, and it's not going to deal with the root of the problem, etc., etc. However, the world we live in often has to deal with, we often have to deal with schedules that are beyond our control. Oftentimes, we only have a brief period of time to see clients, only a brief number of sessions. Unfortunately, this is realistic in the world we live in. In this sort of situation, solution-focused family therapy can be utilized to bring about meaningful change in a short period of time.
Exactly.
So in that way, it's not necessarily a criticism of this therapeutic model, but instead it's a strength.
Good reframing. What's the matter, LT?
Well, you know, all of this talk about solution-focused family therapy in sort of an abstract way is probably boring to the viewers at home.
What do you think then? What should we do?
Well, if only we had perhaps some examples of solution-focused family therapy where a therapist utilizing solution-focused family therapy with some real-life examples.
Well, you're just in luck. I happen to film some sessions with some clients, actually, a family, and I'm wondering, perhaps what we can do is show the viewers at home some clips.
That sounds super exciting.
Excellent. Well, the first step, which we'll show a sample of too, is the phone call. The initial phone call is a part of solution-focused family therapy, and it's a very crucial moment.
Okay, can you tell me a little bit more about the phone call?
I can. In that phone call, you want to address the current issue and the presenting issue from the standpoint of the client. And you also want to find out where they're at with their problem, how they see it right now. And even invite them to notice any kind of differences that they might see during the time from the phone call to the first session.
Oh, so therapy begins like with that first contact.
Exactly.
Neat. Super neat.
Let's check it out. Hi, Alex. Yeah, it's Tyrone calling you back here. Great, yeah. Good. Yeah, so one thing I wanted to know was, what do you perceive as the problem that's bringing you into counseling? Okay. Okay, thanks for explaining, Alex. So, what I'd like to invite you to do between now and the next time we see each other is just notice some things around the problem. When you find that it's less intense, or when you find situations when it doesn't occur as much. And when we come to our first session, we'll have a little bit more of a talk about that, okay? Okay. Okay, thanks, Alex. Looking forward to seeing you. Bye.
Wow, that phone call was super interesting.
Mm-hmm. And you can see how important it is in setting the tone and gathering rapport from that initial contact.
Absolutely. So now that you've made initial contact through the phone call, is there perhaps a model or some sort of procedure that you utilize?
Good question, yeah. The model that I prefer to use is a brief family therapy model based out of the center in Milwaukee for brief family therapy.
The Brief Family Therapy Center in Milwaukee?
That's right.
Yeah, nice.
It's a good place for research and
Practice.
Yeah.
So, what are the sort of stages in the model, if you will?
Good question. Well, there's 5 stages. The first stage is co-constructing the problem and goal, finding out from the clients what their goals are and creating a meaningful goal for them.
Okay, and the second stage?
The second stage is identifying and amplifying exceptions to the problem.
Oh, great.
The third stage is assigning tasks.
All right.
The fourth stage is evaluating those particular tasks. And the fifth stage is reevaluating the goals at the end of, or as it's winding down to the end of therapy and possible termination.
Interesting. Well, one might say that sort of model sounds pretty structured, but when you think about it, it seems pretty general as well. Like there's a lot of room for flexibility in that model.
There certainly is. Yeah. One of the criticisms sometimes about solution-focused family therapy is just that. Do they actually acknowledge the client's feelings or emotions? But they do.
Okay. So you're saying one of the criticisms of solution-focused family therapy is that often people think it ignores the client's emotional experience. However, this isn't necessarily the case. In solution-focused family therapy, building a relationship with the client is paramount.
Exactly.
All of the other stages or skills really rely on that foundation of a strong therapeutic alliance, much like pretty much all therapies.
So it's a common misperception, and it's certainly not the case. You want to make sure that you're garnishing a therapeutic alliance before entering those stages, and that's what that includes.
Yeah, so the model, the 5-stage model from the Brief Family Therapy Center in Milwaukee, the 5-stage model is secondary to building that relationship with the client.
Exactly.
So if it was inappropriate at the time, you wouldn't force the structure of the model onto the client. For instance, if a client is going through a difficult emotional experience, it'd be appropriate to just be with the client, utilize your active listening skills, and really validate their experience, and get to the model when it's appropriate.
That's right, and particularly when you're working with families, some children or youth, there's also an extra step that needs to be taken to actually connect and gather some rapport with children as well.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's crucial in that case to be ensuring that you're connecting with them on their level. So, even that might be some small talk, asking some questions about, what they're interested in, and finding more about them as opposed to just jumping right into therapy.
Now, Tyrell, before we watch the video of you performing stage 1 of the model created by the Brief Family Therapy Center in Milwaukee, I think it might be useful for us to go through stage 1 with the viewers at home.
I think that would be really beneficial. We should maybe break it down for them a little bit. What it means to co-construct the problem, the understanding of the problem, as well as goals, and what that looks like for clients.
Breakdown!
Break it down.
Alright, so, now I've heard that in stage 1, you want to co-create specific, clear, concrete, realistic, and observable goals.
That's right. You want it to be a collaborative process, basically. You want to be working with the client, finding out if the goals that you're creating together make sense for them.
Now, what's it like going into goal setting and sort of goal setting prior to having a really concrete understanding of the problem?
Well, you want to formulate an idea of the problem from their lens, their worldview. But
so there's the assumption that the client has a pretty good understanding of the problem, and it isn't necessarily about us, the therapist, understanding. Instead, it's about them understanding.
Exactly, and that comes back to the client being the expert in their life. They're the ones coming in. We're not telling them what their problem is or isn't.
And likewise, we're not telling them the solutions or the goals to their problem.
Exactly.
So if we make the assumption that the client understands their problem to some degree, and we empower the client to create their own goals and solutions, then it's not nearly as important for the therapist to have a clear understanding of the problem.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, how about we take a look at a video clip showing what stage 1 might look like with clients.
Well, hold your horses there.
Whoa!
Hold them back.
Whoa!
Whoa! We haven't even talked about the skills you're going to use in stage 1 to co-construct goals.
That is a good point. That is a good point.
So there are particular skills that help you meet the curriculum for each stage.
Exactly. Yeah.
Very fascinating stuff.
Yeah. Typically, you can start off with something around a miracle question. You can find out about their coping skills. You can also use scaling questions, particularly in this period.
Okay, so miracle questions, coping questions, and scaling questions are all used to create a goal.
Exactly.
Okay, I imagine scaling questions, for instance, inviting the client to rate the problem, or the level, the intensity of the problem, might be a good place to start.
Yeah, yeah. You can basically find out from the client's point of view where they see the problem. So you can find out, say if a client evaluates their problem at a 6. Why a 6? Why not a 7? What would it look like if it were to be a 5 or a 4?
Okay, when you say it, you mean the client's problem. So like anger or their ability to communicate with others or something along those lines.
Exactly. Yeah.
So like an example you might be ask the client is, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being really poor communication and 1 being really excellent communication, where would you rate your family's current communication? And this sort of allows you to assess the problem. Once you've assessed sort of the problem, you could, move on to what the client wants to have happen?
Exactly. You could find out, even within that, you could explore that a little bit more and find out how it would look differently if they did have effective communication skills, for instance. What that might be like in their family, instilling some of that possibility for solutions in that direction.
Okay, so I imagine the miracle question would be a good skill to sort of get the clients thinking about what their life would be like if they had met their goal.
Exactly. A miracle question is a great way to start to see how their life would look like if the problem didn't exist.
Okay. Could you give me perhaps a concrete example of a miracle question?
Sure, yeah. So typically we like to set the framework up for a client that we would ask them something along the lines of, let's say you go home after today's session, you go to bed and you wake up in the morning and let's say over the course of the evening your problem has disappeared and you no longer have those concerns. Basically, what would it look like in your life? How would your life look different in that sense? And so then we would explore a little bit more about some of those differences and what they were hoping to have changed.
So first you'd assess the problem using a scaling question, and then you'd encourage the client to consider what their life would be like without the problem, so you can sort of assess what they want. And from that you could create a concrete, observable, realistic goal with the client.
Exactly. Yeah.
And what if the client is sort of is unaware of the resources that they have for meeting this goal?
Well, one way in which solution-focused therapists like to find out more about their strengths and resources is through coping questions, finding out how they're already managing at this point, how they're already coping.
So as well as figuring out the problem, coping questions shed light on possible solutions, which may further help set concrete, realistic, attainable goals.
Exactly, yeah. So you can see it's utilizing each of the questions as an intervention to find out more about what their goals are and how their life would look differently if they attain those goals.
Okay, could you give me an example of a coping question?
Sure. One primary example, keeping in mind that you would want to validate a person's experience first. So if you're to acknowledge that they are struggling right now and things are overwhelming, but finding out how they actually how they've been managing to cope throughout this time. That would be a question. So what kinds of steps are they taking to cope at this time?
I imagine that'd be a really powerful intervention because clients often become enmeshed in problem-saturated stories. So it seems like the problem is always present or it's always really horrible. And a coping question might invite or encourage the client to consider times when they were able to manage or deal with the problem, and it wasn't so devastating.
That's right. Yeah, right.
I'm really interested in seeing how you pull this first stage off with your clients.
Okay, how about we take a look at the clip around stage 1 and what that might look like.